An analysis of Wilmer Valderrama's passage in America Like Me by me, Bobby Hull. About the author, Wilmer Valderrama is an American-born actor who, before fully settling in America, lived in Venezuela. He eventually returned to America, and he had passion for acting, and eventually gains the role of Fez on That 70s Show. To this day, he is still acting and pursuing his dreams of bringing Latino characters to life on screen. So the main argument of this text is, despite the many barriers in life, never give up on your dreams. How this is constructed is a problem-solution writing style throughout the text, a pathos, appeal, and emotion, and this entirety of the text is his telling a story of the struggle and how he got to That 70s Show. So for the past of this argument, the purpose is to tell people, despite barriers they may face, whether it's cultural or other, you should always follow your dreams and don't let anything stop you. The audience he's trying to reach is anybody who's struggling in life, whether it be culturally, financially, or whatever. Keep going and you will achieve your dreams. Never give up. The speaker, Wilmer, believes he can connect with the audience because he feels they can relate to his story of the struggle, hardship, the joy, everything. And his situation, he describes the hardships of learning a new language and problems his family faced and how that impacted his life. So to start off in the first paragraph, he really just gives a background on what he was known for as Fez on That 70s Show. It helps create a sense of nostalgia and remind people of who he was and give knowledge to people who didn't know that before. He alludes to That 70s Show as shown in the top half of the paragraph, but in the bottom half of the paragraph, he starts using that problem solution organization in his passage, shown in the highlighted pink. This he will continue to use throughout the passage itself. Now, this is just a quick highlight. In paragraph 3, this starts the story. This starts the narrative of what he went through to get to the point he is now. In this paragraph, he focuses more on his past in Venezuela. He talks about how he used to watch RoboCop over and over again all year round because that was the only thing offered. He uses childlike tones of excitement and hyperboles to get that thing across by using phrases like, "Oh, I've watched that movie a million times, and I knew that movie backwards and forwards." This helps further his excitement and childlike wonder. In paragraph 4, we start seeing foreshadowing of language barriers that he may face in the future. Like how he describes, even though he was supposed to be in English, he never really paid attention, and he will further on regret that in the future. He also sets that how in Venezuela, realistically, there was no future in performing arts for little boys. And that hurt him because that's all he wanted to do in the future was act and perform. And he also describes despite the fact that there was no TV shows or movies in Venezuela, they still held plays and stuff, and he uses it in pressed tones to highlight how he was happy the fact that they could put these on despite their barriers as a community. Skipping over to paragraph 6 and 8, this is when he started to come to the United States. He uses tones of admiration because he's looking up to his parents. He describes the things they do for him and his siblings, like they were risking everything to give him and his sister the best life. They left so much behind, etc. He uses those phrases and tones. He uses a personal anecdote to describe what it was like in Venezuela during his time, like dark stuff with the AKs, the drug cartel violence, bombing, senators getting murdered, all that. He used that to establish what life was like beforehand. He also likes to use some verbal irony. Like, no big deal. Just learn an entirely new language at the age of 13 and then go ahead and conquer the world. He uses this to make fun of the fact that it's not easy to learn a new language. And he hopes that he can get that point across. In this paragraph, he starts to tell of the struggle he sees with that language barrier. He uses that first section to set the tone of the paragraph. of just he was thrown into it. There I was, suddenly a 7th grader in Los Angeles at a regular public school. Sure, I was coming back to a place where I should feel like I belonged. It was technically my home country, but I didn't speak a lick of English. He uses that to set a tone of he didn't know what he was doing and he was just thrown in. He then further tells of how the language barrier affected him, how he was being held back, how people thought he was slow, and how he was bonding with his sister over all this. He also uses dashes to help make sudden changes in a sentence. We didn't have time for teen angst. We were serious and determined to become successful. This helps create a determined tone of voice that he will further use in this chapter. To skip over to paragraphs 11, Wilmer uses these couple of paragraphs to describe his first experiences with American theater. This is a big step for him because he did plays in Venezuela, but he never really put on an American production per se. He uses, again, the problem solution text structure in this passage. He describes how he wanted to play the Beast and how the drama teacher didn't think he could because of the language barrier. But because of his determination, they had a solution in mind. She offered to let him play the Beast if it would allow her to be the voice of the Beast, meaning that essentially he would get to play the physical part, but she would get to voice. And he was fine with that. That was a great solution for him because he could do what he wanted to do, even if he wasn't getting credit. You can also see his determination in this passage by use of a phrase and figurative language like throw yourself to the wolves and fight, be furious. He uses words like the tear and I can do it, I know I can do it. This sets up his determination throughout the passage. And afterwards, this is when we start seeing the total struggle they felt. In this paragraph, he describes the time when their car was being stolen. He uses sad tones and worried phrases, like his mother was crying and we would never be able to afford getting a new vehicle. My sister and I were not going to be able to walk to school. She would have to walk to get groceries, and the father would have to miss work. He uses this to set up a worried and sad, suspenseful tone that's going to be helpful in the future paragraphs. His dad also uses optimistic sentence structure and optimistic tones when dealing with these problems. He notes that this is a reoccurring thing with his dad. So this part of the story is when he starts to act. This is when he starts to audition for the role. His family just went through struggle. They were walking one day and he found an audition flyer and he decided to take it. So he and his dad went to go audition. Well, he did. It was a big deal. You could make $15,000 for just filming the pilot. That would set them for a good time. And highlighted in red, that phrase, we both knew we couldn't really use money, but my dad never wanted me to feel pressure to support the family. It sets a tone of the passage of he really needs the money, but his family wasn't pressuring him, but he was pressuring himself. But his dad then gives him a motivational quote. Remember, mijo, if you get this part, great. If you don't get this part, that's great too. You're still learning something and we will be okay. That motivational quote helped Fez understand what he needs to do. So he walked in that room with the quote-unquote ethnic accent. I highlighted the punctuation there because really his ethnic accent was his real accent. So it really just ironic. And he landed that part and he thanks his dad for that quote. And for the conclusion, this conclusion is short and sweet. He summarizes his story to get to Fez. He tells of the afters of like how he helps his family, how he bonded with people, and he tells of what he's working on today. Like his main goal in life is to bring more Latino characters to the street so kids like him watching may feel more visible in life, that they wanted more representation. He also uses comparisons from previous statements made. Like, it was my conversation that I was living in a land of opportunity where hard work really does pay off. That compared to what he said beforehand about Venezuela, how even if you're hardworking, you can't do much. And he uses the comparison of the role of Beauty and the Beast to the time where he's voicing a Latino fairy tale prince in his production of Prince Charming. So the overall analysis of this entire passage is a pathos appeal. He connects with the audience using his story of how he got from this small little boy who watched RoboCop to this big time Hollywood actor, with stories of joy and struggle and tragedy. Some devices he really uses is personal anecdotes, a variety of tones, a few comparisons, and that problem solution set in structure. So that's it for Valderramas. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed this PowerPoint. I am very sick. Have a great day.